Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Dr. Marcia Martin, and we are going to be talking about fear and guilt and shame and blame. And so today's topic is actually going to be, what is my fear trying to tell me, and what can I learn when I feel fear? So I've been looking forward to this talk because, well, everybody knows fear, right? And a lot of people are influenced by fear. But I also think that a lot of people are not knowledgeable enough about fear. So I've been looking forward to this. Thank you for joining me today, Marcia.
I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to sharing with you as well.
So I'm not sure if everybody knows this already, but if not, then you know it after I tell you. There are basically two ways of living, two ways of making choices. And one is living out of fear, making choices based on fear, either being afraid of losing something or afraid of not getting something or afraid of consequences or, reasons like that for the choices that we make. Or we can come from love. Most people come from fear. What are your experiences with fear? What is your take on fear?
Well, I love that you said that because it really helps us see that fear is reactionary. Fear is a product of what have you learned or experienced prior to this that is going to make you react. Don't think about it, just react in this way. Whereas love is that, oh, I feel safe. So I'm not forced to react. I actually have time. I can take my time. I can think about what I do want, and I can take an action that will support me in receiving what I would like instead of what I'm afraid I might get stuck with.
Mhm.
And so I just love that distinction between the two, where fear is just constantly pressure. You have to make your decision right now because if you don't, something terrible may happen. The other person may get what you wanted, or this opportunity will never come again. Love has a much broader oversight to it and understands that anything that was meant for you will make its way to you again and again and again until you are able to receive it. So there is no hurry, there is no pressure. There is only you feeling, I am ready, as opposed to, and when we can take away that anxiety, we are always more likely to make a better decision.
Yes, exactly. And so basically, what you're saying is fear is reactionary. It's almost instant. Something happens, or we hear something, we smell something, we see something, and poof, we are in fear. And fear then triggers autopilot programs in general, and the way we've always responded to fear, and then the feelings that come with it, and the actions that we then take, or it clouds our judgment and we make decisions that are rash and not well thought out. While love is what happens when we come from a place of inner peace, where we've healed our wounding, where we are no longer reactionary, but it's a choice. We have enough inner peace in our body to look at something that happens and to choose how we want to respond to it.
Absolutely. And they are just sharing with me over and over again those sales tools that none of us like, that buy it now, or there's only 10, or, that intense pressure makes you feel like I don't have a choice. I have to, if I want to get this thing that I am desiring, I must act now. And that always makes us feel a little less safe, a
Mhm.
little out of control.
Yeah.
And so they really are using fear to manipulate us to take an action that they want us to take.
Yes.
Whereas if the company tried to approach you and said, "You are such an incredible customer. We love you so much. We'd like to give you all of the time that you need in order to get this incredible product." And then they told you, "Well, you have all the time that you need, but while you are taking time, you will be missing out on these benefits. So you won't get benefit A, B, C, and D." I wonder if we would be more likely to buy if somebody told us the benefits than if somebody was pressuring us all of the time.
I
Because
don't think so, because this will still be pressure, because now you are tapping into the FOMO, the fear of missing out.
true, that is
Eh?
true.
So on the one hand, you're saying take your time, but you are missing out
Yes,
on
you are going
this.
to be missing these benefits. And
Yes.
that really is the perfect example of what fear can do for you. If you are saying, "I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later," and this is any kind of self-improvement or letting go of a habit that may be destructive or a routine or a mindset or any of these things that could be holding you back, well, then you really are missing out on the benefit from making that change.
Mm.
So in this case, that fear of missing out is actually positive because you would be in so much better place emotionally and energetically if you would embrace these things that you're putting off. So, in that case, fear is actually working to your benefit. It's pushing you to take an action that you may not want to take if you weren't feeling some sort of
Fear can
FOMO
definitely
or,
also be positive, exactly, because it can be that last kick in the butt that we need to actually get off our butt, right?
yes,
So it can
yes.
be that. And I think if we started selling, not pushing pain points, which is one of the favorites, right?
Hmm.
You will have no money, and you will lose your house, and you will lose your car, and your wife will leave you, or your husband will go. You'll lose the dog, the white picket fence, and you will be in a trailer park with the trash or something. And that's one of the favorites they push, which is also not only pain but also fear, because who wants to end up in a trailer with the trash? That's a fear and a pain point. But if we started looking at, well, what are you afraid of? And how can we help you navigate this fear? How can I help you navigate this fear? And maybe you still have things that are not clear to you. And maybe I can clarify some things for you. Or maybe you have specific concerns that we can then address and talk about, so that I can help you take the fears away or the concerns away. So it's more, I think, communication what we need. It's not just doing your spiel. I immediately unregister from all of these people that have email sequences like, there's only 24 hours
Oh,
left. Oh, there's only 8 hours left. Only 4 hours left. The last hour, the last 15 minutes, the last 5 minutes. Make sure that you buy now what never comes again. I think, oh my God, I am an adult. I'm perfectly capable of making my own choices. And if I wanted to buy your product, I would have done so already. I don't appreciate the 50 plus emails that you're flooding my inbox with the pressure, the pressure, the pressure, the pressure. Instead, I would have appreciated if you would talk to me about the great things that will happen if I say yes, or the beauty that I can expect, or just the whole process of what we're going to be doing, because that is another thing that I see lacking in so many things. People are not clear. They talk in generalities and in vagaries. And how is that supposed to instill trust?
sure. Well, yeah. Why would I want to work with you, buy from you, do anything with you if you're just a snake oil salesman? If
Yes.
your product can do everything. And I think what I heard you say most is how loving you would like the approach to be.
Yes.
If somebody says, "You will be missing out," that is a truth. You will be missing out if you decide you're going to stick with your alcohol habit, let's just say, and every night you need a drink or several drinks, and you tell yourself, well, when it gets bad enough, I'll cut back or I'll change or whatever. And you don't do anything until you're starting to have a difficulty. Well, now this difficulty that has come up is really just waving its hand saying, hey, you did say you would change this habit that has become destructive when it started really impacting you physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. The time is now. To me, that is very loving, even though
Yes.
there is fear attached to it. Uh-oh, my liver can't process anymore. I'm in trouble. I need to make a change.
Hmm.
So, again, one of those ways in which a little bit of uh-oh can be very loving for your overall outlook.
Exactly. So there are different types of fear. We've already established that, and but there are also different levels of experiencing fear for different people. For everybody, it works different. And then there are certain events leading up to people being fearful or being stuck in a fear pattern. What are some of these things that you've seen in your work?
I think we need to really separate here. Experiences like abuse and trauma are not normal, acceptable levels of fear. We are not suggesting that you try to go through your life and put yourself in dangerous or abusive situations so you can use fear to motivate you.
No.
These are out of the box, not acceptable, and very destructive types of fear that will take quite a bit of time and effort on your part to recover from. So there's a huge difference between, hey, you're missing out on this benefit and you've had this traumatic experience that has significantly impacted your life. So please don't mix the two up. One is just a little bit of motivation to get you going in the direction that's for your highest good. The other is going to possibly redefine your life.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that experiences of abuse and trauma cannot lead you toward your highest good. They may propel you to take action that you otherwise would never have taken, but they are not what I would advocate. Try to get
No,
there without it. They are the
exactly.
extreme.
Hmm.
Sometimes the extreme is what you have chosen for your own personal growth, but you don't need to go that extreme.
No.
Be a learner, a lifelong learner. Be aware, be alert. Look for when things are going in a direction that doesn't feel good and ask yourself, what is it that I need to learn?
Hmm.
What is this trying to tell me? What would be better for me to be doing in this circumstance than what I am doing?
Exactly.
However, let me just say one more thing. That does not mean that if you were abused, you deserved it.
Oh no,
Never the case. So
no,
let me just make that very clear.
no. Exactly.
Yes, we can do things to turn the ship around, but abuse is not something that was earned or deserved.
No, for sure. As someone who was abused as a child, I can 100% stand behind that. It's true. But what I also can say is that when you have a background like that, fear is ingrained into you. For me, it started at a very young age, so it became a natural response to a lot of things. It was a survival mechanism that served a purpose when I was younger. It made me survive my childhood, but started to work against me when I was an adult and keeping me where I didn't want to be. Because of fears, I wanted to keep a very tight control over everything because there was no control when I was younger. And that also is not healthy. So I think whenever you're experiencing fear, you need to look at what type of fear is this? Is this an existential fear that maybe stems from abuse? If so, then you have some healing to do. It doesn't have to be this way, and you can heal whatever happened and then let that fear go, escape the grip of that fear so that it doesn't have to influence your decisions anymore. But it can also be a fear that comes from stepping out of your comfort zone. And your comfort zone is just the things that you're familiar with. I had a sister-in-law, and her boyfriend grew up in a very tiny village, and that was his whole life. And the idea of getting out of that village or moving to a different city terrified him because he loved the smallness of it. And that is just a comfort zone fear problem, right? Because nothing bad had ever happened to him. There was also no reason to expect that something bad would happen in another town, but he was just afraid of going to a bigger town because he knew small time life and was loving it. So it's important, I think, that you look at what type of fear is this, and if that is difficult for you yourself, then ask for help. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be one of us that can help you, or any other type of coach, healer, mentor that can help you sort out what type of fear that you're dealing with. Because in the end, I think all of us want to be the one in control of how our life goes and which direction it takes. And when you don't get a handle on your fear, then your fear controls your life.
100%. I think it's so important that you have that conversation with fear. So I love the fact that you said as a child, your fear kept you safe. That
Mm,
is 100% correct for anyone who is in an active abuse or trauma situation. You do not need to be the bold one sticking your nose everywhere unless you know that you can carry that forward. You may need to be very quiet, very submissive while you are planning how you are getting out of that situation. So you need to have a conversation with the fear. What am I to be learning here? What is actually happening? What is my imagination? And what is real life? So
mhm,
we take the gentleman who was in the small town. It's his imagination that tells him, I will never be able to function anywhere out of this environment. He had never really experienced any kind of unpleasant growth opportunities like trauma and abuse can often be.
mhm,
So just the idea that he would have to expand was kind of paralyzing. And we can understand that, but we can also see, gosh, you're missing out on this great opportunity to see how much more you can be.
mhm,
Now, that compared with you as a child, well, as a child, we need to understand you are essentially powerless. You cannot work, you cannot get your own food, you cannot go find another place to live. So
no,
there is a certain amount of accommodating that you need to do in order to survive this situation. And then, as you said, your quest or your your job as an adult is to recognize when you are repeating that pattern from childhood of I must keep myself safe by doing X, Y, and Z. And when you are actually in need of that pattern in order to stay safe. And I
exactly.
think that's really important. We must always, whether it is a case of abuse and trauma or just our daily life, any patterns that we find that we have fallen into, it's always a good idea to review them and ask yourself, is this serving me?
Mhm,
Can
exactly.
I do something else? Again, it may be leave my small town. Can I do something else that maybe feel a little scary, but will offer me more growth?
Hmm.
And that is the best thing you can offer yourself, is always that opportunity to grow,
Hmm.
recognizing it may not work out. That's
Exactly.
okay. There's no guarantee that every time you say, I'm going to flap my wings and fly, that you're actually going to make it to your destination. But you will learn something in the journey. So it is worth it. You may only learn what you don't want, but you
Hmm.
will definitely learn something that will help you as you get ready to go flap your wings for the next time.
Exactly. So to illustrate that with an example I live next to a gorgeous nature area, but
Mm.
it's vast and I didn't know it. So, on the one hand, I wanted to go there. It looked gorgeous on the pictures. I heard wonderful stories, but I was afraid of getting lost. I was afraid of not finding the car back again because it's so vast. And I was afraid of being, because there's also no cell reception there. So you couldn't call for help, right? And
Right,
then
Dara.
even if I could call, I'm next to this green tree and this brown tree in front of this toadstool, right? How is anybody going to find you? So for a long time, I let my fear hold me back from exploring this beautiful nature area. And then at one point, I thought, well, this is ridiculous. I want to go there and I want to see it. So what's happening here? And I broke it down, and this were the reasons I discovered. I am afraid of getting lost and not finding the car again. Okay, so how can we navigate this? And then I downloaded an app called Sports Tracker, which allows you to track the
Oh,
route that you're working. So I started the tracking at the car. So it places a marker at the car. And then it follows your entire route. So that means that you can always see where your route started and where the
oh,
car is. So I
I
thought,
love
oh,
that.
I'm loving this. So that gave me confidence to just go somewhere, park the car, start the app, and go walking. And then I turned it into an even bigger learning moment by, well, I do intuitive walking. I was in the process of fortifying my intuition, which meant that with every intersection or crossroads, I would stop and I would look at every path that I could choose. I would close my eyes and I would imagine walking that path and then seeing how my body responded to it. And then I would choose the one that felt the best. And so that's connecting with your body, discovering your intuitive signals, and then, making a choice based on your intuition. That was already wonderful. But then when I reached the moment where I thought, okay, I'm done with the walking, I want to go back to the car, right? I would first think, okay, so if I didn't have the app and I was standing here, where would I think I had left the car? Which direction would I have intuitively chosen as the direction to walk to get back to the car? So I would look around and I would think, well, if I had to say, then that way. I think the car is that way. And then I would take the app and I would open it, and it has a dot for where you are and a dot for where the car is. And I would look and I think, the car is that way.
Look at that.
Right? So that was already awesome. And by doing that a couple of times, every time I intuitively went in the right direction. So this also fortified my belief in myself,
Mhm.
my belief in my intuition, and my belief in I can find my way. I can find my direction. Even without the app, I can find the car. There is nothing to be afraid of, not just in this particular nature area, but in every area that I've never been before.
I love that because it gave us so much information about how do you address overcoming the fear. You use training wheels.
Yes.
The most important gift that any of us have is our ability to connect with the divine, and all of us have that. However, if we don't use that gift or we're not aware of it, it can be just this little teeny tiny connection that you may not even notice. So you don't want to go plunking yourself in the middle of the ocean and then say, oh, I can figure out which way land is because I have a God connection when you've never used that connection before.
Exactly.
Just the fact that was brilliant because you gave yourself a way to win, but you didn't rely on that. You instead expanded your intuitive self and then checked to see your accuracy,
Hmm.
which why are we not allowing ourselves to win? This, if I'm aggravated at society for anything, it is that obsession with failure.
Yes.
That wasn't good enough. You failed. That's wrong. Oh,
Hmm.
terrible. You did exactly the opposite. You made it impossible for yourself to fail so that you could then have this pleasant experience that's going to reinforce, oh my gosh, I love using my intuition. Look how accurate it is because here's this app and I can see right here that I have 100% proof that my intuition is working.
Exactly.
So, so important to use training wheels and look at what you're doing right.
Yes.
There are going to be some missteps along the way. Every time you try something new, every time you step out of the box for the first time, there's a learning curve. It's
Yes.
not going to be 100% foolproof from the beginning. But if you keep going and you keep concentrating on what you're doing right what and all of the ways in which you are reinforcing, look at me, I got it right again, it's just going to become second nature.
Hmm.
You're now going to feel so great. You'll be the one on the ocean. Oh, I know exactly where the shore
I
is.
now like to do it, right? I think, oh, this is a trail I've never walked before. Woo, we're going, right? I've
Yes,
no
this
clue
is
where it will lead.
exciting. Yes. And then your excitement opens up even more of a connection to the divine. So
Yes.
the things that close it down are fear, guilt, shame, blame, doubt, any of those emotions make us so clouded. The intuition isn't going anywhere. The stream of messages isn't going anywhere, but we put ourselves under a dark cloud so that it's almost impossible to receive anything. But when you get enthusiastic, when you're excited, when you have the success, when you've built in a backup so that you don't have to worry, now you just wide open and oh my gosh, look at this. I'm getting it right every time.
Yes.
It's just a matter of perception because
Hmm.
that message, that information is going to be there for you regardless. You
Exactly.
cannot shut it off. You can merely make it really difficult to access.
Hmm. And another thing I also love to do is to reframe it. So when I
Yes.
bought this house, my relationship had just ended, and I was in a severe burnout, so I wasn't my best. Let's be very kind. And then, the previous owners of this house had taken the rug on the stairs, and they had only painted the sides that stuck out of the rug. So that meant that the whole middle of the stairs was bold, just wood, no paint, no nothing. It was but ugly. So I thought, well, I need to do something with this. And it was either lots and lots of sanding and then painting it, or something else. And I was in a store, and then I saw this carpet roll, of which I thought this might be the perfect width for the stairs. So on intuition, I bought it, and I said I need enough to cover the stairs, and they thought, well, about this length that you then need. And I took it home, and then I was looking at the stairs, and I thought, hmm, I've never done this before. I'd never put carpet on the stairs. So I thought, what is the worst that can happen? And that's the reframing of the fear. My fear was that I was sucked at it, or that it would look hideous, or that I couldn't do it by myself, or that I needed outside help, or, things like that. So I looked at what's the worst that can happen. Well, that it's on there crooked and that I need to take it off again and go and find someone to help me. I thought, oh, well, if that's the worst that can happen, I can deal with that. So I bought a nail gun. And I thought the most important thing is that when you go down the stairs, that it doesn't come loose and that you fall and go face forward down the stairs, right? That was the worst thing
A
I can
little
imagine.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yes. So I just started and I thought it out beforehand and I just started working. And then I came to the bottom and I looked and it was dead straight. And it's still on
Wow.
there. It's now 12 years later. It still hasn't come loose. So I was feeling incredibly proud of myself. And so for a fear of never having used a power tool before and never having done anything like that, going to the worst that can happen, discovering that I could handle the worst that can happen, to having a result that's still perfect 12 years later.
And another reason to feel good about yourself. But
Exactly.
I do love that example because it really clarifies that point of when should you do something and when is it really better not to? And that is based on the consequence. Are you willing to live with the consequence if it doesn't work out? If you don't have the skill, if you don't have the knowledge that you need in order to do this well, is the consequence minimal enough so that it's worth it to try? Or is the consequence so bad that it would be much more important for you to hire someone to do this for you?
Exactly. I had that when my lighting failed in the toilet and it short circuited, and I needed to find out why and everything with electricity. And I thought if anything goes wrong, I electrocute myself. So that's when I
Exactly.
decided to call someone who is an expert in electricity.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I was just thinking with taxes, I have a nonprofit, and up until this point, the form has been simple enough for me to do it by myself. But I said, okay, this is the last year that I'm going to try to do these numbers because the consequence is way too severe. And I am not an accountant. So I'm going to make sure that there is money set aside for a professional who can make sure that are in compliance.
Mhm.
And so I just think, try it if you have an interest in it, if it feels like this could be an accomplishment, but be alert to what the consequence could be if you are not able to do it successfully. And that's where that fear can be really important. If
Yes.
you're feeling really afraid, like, take the taxes. I don't want to lose our nonprofit status and have a penalty,
Hmm.
a very large penalty.
Exactly.
So there I am afraid to do this paperwork next year when it gets more complicated.
Hmm.
I don't consider that being afraid. To me, that's just smart because I sure don't like the consequence.
Exactly.
But learning how to install a runner on the stairs, that sounds kind of fun and
Mhm.
something that may be a little frustrating, but can every time you look at it, you get to say, look at me, look what I did. And for
Yes.
12 years now, you've been able to say, look at what I've done.
Exactly. Yeah, I have more power tools in my shed than my male neighbors, and I know how to use all of them. So that's also a point of pride, right? So I think in the essence of what we've been talking about is that fear is a signal. Fear is just a means of trying to get your attention. It's trying to make you aware of something. So it's your job to figure out what it's trying to tell you. And that means most people try to run away from fear or they try to avoid fear at all costs. But then you're never getting rid of it. You're never learning your lesson. And you're never stepping up or stepping out of your comfort zone. So I think that when fear happens, just breathe. First of all, breathe. And keep breathing. And because a lot of people, myself included, way back then, we stopped breathing because fear can
Mhm.
lock everything up. So keep breathing and then still look at this fear. where is it coming from? What is it connecting to? Is it coming from my childhood trauma, or is it coming because I have certain beliefs that are no longer congruent, or is it coming from a fear of stepping out of my comfort zone? And so try and figure out what type of fear that you're actually dealing with, because that will then tell you the next steps to take with it. If it's fear that comes from a survival mechanism or from a traumatic experience or something, then that means that you are allowed to find someone to help you navigate this fear and heal what's underneath it so that it can dissolve and it no longer has to bother you. If it comes from beliefs, then you might need to work on your mindset and get rid of these beliefs and replace them with beliefs that are serving you. And if it comes from your comfort zone, then just try and see how you can make it work and be less scared so that you dare step out of it.
And ask for help. I think it's so important that we don't punish ourselves or don't ridicule ourselves for saying, I'm not able to do this by myself.
Mhm.
If we were going to be able to do it all by ourselves, we'd have our own islands and we'd just never interact. So understand that most things really need support, especially those that are deeply ingrained or that are so common to the human experience. So things like rejection or not being enough or always finding yourself alone. If those have been your past experiences, you may need the support of a trained professional who can help you move into the next place because
Yes.
you may not be able to recognize the knee-jerk reactions that you are doing that are keeping you in these fear-based reactions. You may have been doing them for so long
Mhm.
that to you it seems normal, and
Mhm.
having an outside person listen to you and observe you and say, "Gosh, did you realize that every time somebody says, 'Would you like to come for coffee?' you immediately say no, and then wonder why no one keeps inviting you? Did you realize that, you're defensive in this particular area? And is there a way we could soften your response? Or let's dig into why you want to say no first and then later backtrack. You
Mhm.
know, w- let's help you understand where this is coming from and whether it is still appropriate. And that now we're going back to those trauma and abuse situations. We do come up with coping skills and coping mechanisms when things have happened that are really hurtful.
Yes.
But as we move out of that situation, those things may no longer be helpful.
Yes, exactly. And a thing that is also important, I think, to point out here is that if it's a fear that has to do with your comfort zone, then stepping out of that fear or conquering fear can happen quickly. But if it's a fear that is trauma based, then the healing journey can take some time. It can even take quite some time, depending on how deep the wounding goes and how much trauma has happened. It's different if the fear comes from a car accident or from a childhood of abuse of many, many, many years. So these are things to take into consideration when you start working with your fear, that it doesn't always mean that tomorrow you're over it. Or in the next hour you're over it. It can be that it's a journey of 5 or even 10, 15 years of overcoming certain things, and that is okay. Even baby steps are already helping you get out of it, and you are doing fabulously whatever your journey is, as long as you don't stay where you don't want to be.
I think so important, just commit to growing and let go of a timeline. Because as you said, those baby steps may lead you in a completely new direction that you had not even considered. And you may love that direction so much more than where you had planned on going.
Mhm.
So commit to the journey, commit to growing, commit to, I just want to see what wonderful, fabulous new thing can come to me today, or da- get right down to in this moment, and I'll move from moment to moment. And if somebody were to tell me, I believe when I started my journey, okay, you got about 20 years here to go, I probably would have turned around and run in the other direction.
Kill me now.
Yeah. But, but if I really look back, I realize, oh my gosh, I wasn't, it was such an evolving, fun exploration
Mhm.
that, and it went and it made me become so different than what I thought I could be. It expanded me to be so much more, that it was my own choice to extend the growth, to keep studying, to
Yes.
push myself even further, long after I had dealt with those patterns that I had been put in place due to trauma.
Mhm.
So you may end your journey more quickly than we did. We just chose to keep going because it's exciting and interesting and expanding.
Yes, and what I've also discovered is also greatly dependent on what your journey is here on Earth. As some
Oh,
people,
true.
like I am, we have a visionary leader journey and also a visionary leader role to fulfill. And you cannot teach or be a leader if you haven't gone through the things that you want to be teaching. So then you go through all of these things because it helps you prepare for your eventual job or your purpose, your mission here on earth. And for others, they have a very different mission, so it can be less severe or shorter, but in the end it's personal, right? It's your thing. And when you make the shift to making choices and living from love, it feels so much better than any of the choices you've ever made that came from fear.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I think that's such a good point. Fear is so constricting. When
Yes.
I was being ruled by fear, I thought I only, this was my little bitty alleyway. And now that I am governed by love, I'm just, whoa, I can go anywhere, be anyone, do anything that really speaks to my heart.
Hmm.
So if you feel that you are being badly constricted, or you can't take a full breath, it may be because you're allowing fear to tell you what you can and cannot do. And this is your opportunity to explore love. And we don't mean romantic love. We are talking about that unconditional love that accepts you as you are, where you are, no judgment, no criticism, no blame, no shame, no guilt, just, oh, you're perfect as you are.
Exactly. I
And
love.
that place, and one thing that have taught me, and when I say they, I'm talking about my angelic support system. One thing they have taught me that I appreciate more than anything is being able to say, I am perfect. Prior to working with them, I would have fought you tooth and nail. I can't be perfect. What
Yes.
about this bad thing that I did? Or,
I'm doing
oh,
this wrong, that wrong, that wrong,
right,
that
right.
wrong.
And they came back and said, you're just perfect in this moment. If this moment was not where you are supposed to be, you would be somewhere else. So
Mhm.
allow yourself and your circumstances to be perfect in this moment. Recognize they may not be perfect for yesterday, and they may not be perfect for tomorrow, but you're not in either of those places.
No.
You're right here. So whatever you're doing, whoever you are being is perfect for you at this moment so that you can grow, expand, learn, whatever it is. And this includes if I suddenly hop into a fear headspace, that if I allow it to be perfect, then I have the opportunity to analyze, how did I get here? Why am I here? What is this fear trying to teach me? And that can make me easily move into the place that feels better.
Yes. Ah, I couldn't have said it any better. So there you have it, people. This is the story about fear and the way out of fear. So if you have been following us and following along with our interview, I would love it if you could do a couple of things. I would love it if you could subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you will never miss another episode. I would love it if you could leave your biggest insight or the thing that really touched you from our interview in the comments below this video. And if you thought that this was valuable, I would love it if you could share it with your tribe, because you never know who needed to hear this message that we've brought here together. And if you have loved this interview as much as I have loved this interview, then I can also imagine that you are dying to find out where can you connect with Marcia. So where can people find you?
We are now a nonprofit. So we are the Heart Healing Foundation.org. And I mentioned that we're a nonprofit because you can come work privately one-on-one with me, or you can choose to do pay what you can and be part of a group. So wherever you find yourself on the economic scale, and there's no judgment, it's just what is available to you at this moment, you can still receive support.
Mhm.
It's the Heart Healing Foundation.org.
I love it. I will make sure that the link that Dr. Marcia just mentioned is included in the show notes, probably below this video, but look for it anywhere around this video, depending on where you're catching this interview today. And my links, of course, are also always in there. I also offer a free consultation with me if you want to explore working together. So, yeah, there's no reason for you to stay stuck in fear if you do not want to be there. And there's every reason for you to take the first step and move towards a rewarding, fulfilling life that comes from being connected to your heart and the divine love that is out there.
Thanks so much for having me today. It feels good to encourage people to embrace the love instead of being ruled by fear.
Yes, I totally agree. I'm very grateful that you were my guest today for this interview. I loved every single minute of it. I hope all of you loved it as well. I want to thank you for watching, for listening, for always supporting this channel, for loving it, liking it, commenting, and sharing. And I look forward to bringing another beautiful guest to your attention in next week's attention. For today, I wish both you, Marcia, as well as everybody listening and watching, the most wonderful day ever. And I hope to see you again for next time.
Thanks so much.